Seeking FM, inspirasi utama anda. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good afternoon to our dear listeners of Seeking FM. Welcome to a brand new episode of Seeking Sakinah. I'm your host, Batrisha Afrina. Alhamdulillah, thank you very much for listening to us from wherever you are. Either you are listening to this through Facebook, YouTube, or even through our social media pages and some others more. So, as usual, I would like to introduce the man of the show himself, Brother Idris Khamisa. Assalamualaikum, Brother Idris.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing great. How about you, Brother Idris?
I'm always excited to be here in the studio because I know we have, I like to believe, a meaningful discussion.
Yes.
And hopefully, as I've always said, that perhaps we're giving people hope because your home does not have to be unhappy.
Yes.
And you can make it happy. Today is the day.
Yes, inshallah. So we hope that today's discussion can give you motivational or also can inspire you on working out to improve your relationship with your spouse. All right, and it is very related to the topic that we are going to talk about for today, which is conflict resolution and problem solving. I think, of course, in any relationship, they must be, we previously talked about the not arguments but the disagreement, right? But then generally, of course, there will be problems, and it is very important for you or for the people in relationship to know how can they approach the problem, how can they to solve it. So of course, let's go in the starting of this discussion. Let's understand the root whenever conflict happen in relationship. As we know that conflict in relationships, it often stems from deeper or unresolved emotions, and also, or it can also sometimes derive from misunderstandings that not yet been resolved between husband and wife, and this can go unnoticed. So it is very important for one to identify any problems whenever you have in conflict, right? To identify, are there any other root causes that may bring into the problems that they are facing. So to start with today's conversation, what is your advice to the couples out there on how can they identify these underlying causes?
There are a few things that I need to mention. The one is that it's far better to do a biopsy rather than an autopsy. So I know there's a friend of mine who says on a weekly basis, his wife and him have a date night.
Date night.
Yeah. And in that particular evening, they would speak about the wonderful things that happen. But at the same token, they'll identify one or two issues that have crept up. So at that time, because it is fresh, it is not residing and remaining there. And you find that it does not lead to a conflict. You understand?
And not lead to assumption.
Assumption also.
Yeah.
So in that way, it inspires in them confidence. They have open lines of communication. That's one.
Yes.
The second important factor is this, that conflicts come when they are protracted disagreements and arguments, when it goes on for a long time, right? That can be very, very problematic.
Yeah.
Right? I know there is one writer who identifies four things.
Four things.
Yeah. And now this is important. Like when people come to me, often people come to me at the last minute, at the time when they are so upset. The four things he speaks about are very bad signs. One is contempt. The other one is defensiveness. The other one is stonewalling. And the other one is disdain. Yeah. So he says that when there are these signs, one of these four signs is terrible.
It's too late?
Yeah. He says he believes that it is too late.
I see.
But I still give people hope. So I think it's important for any person who comes with any one of these things to inspire in him confidence that any situation can change. I always tell them, I know you're assuming, listen, who are you? I go through this with my wife or my husband. I know him better than you do. right?
Yeah.
And so I think these are these when these things happen, then you got a mountain to climb, and you got to do it. You got to take a small step in trying to identify that.
It may
So I
not be
think in
easy.
the end, it's clear to me that when couples, for example, do not know how to negotiate,
Yeah.
if they do not know when to speak and when to be quiet, you can find that this can really be problematic. And I think I shared this incident with you. I'll share it again. This incident was, there was once a couple who wanted to see me, and they drove, from Johannesburg to Durban, and it's a long way.
Yeah.
They did not fly. They left their son or daughter with the grandparents, I think it was. So when they arrived in Durban, I promised to see them not far from my place. So they phoned me up. They said to me, you know what they said to me? Brother Idris, there is no need for us to see you. We have resolved our conflicts. I said, but I still want to see you. So when I met with them, asked them, how did you resolve the conflict? In what he said, words to this, what they said. For the first time, we listened to each other with empathy. We never interrupted each other. I recognize where I'm doing things that are wrong, and she recognized it. We forgave each other, and we made a commitment that we're going to do things differently. And that's the bottom line. In fact, marital issues can be resolved by the couples. Resolved. As long as you are prepared. You see, one of the things, this is sometimes a person will say, I'm not prepared to change, she must change, or nothing is wrong with me. I'm perfect. And that's a serious error of judgment.
So they feel like they are being challenged, you think?
Sorry?
For example, like whenever people have this kind of conversation, usually it is tough is because that one side will think that they feel attacked personally about that.
Yeah, so it's the way you do it. Right? You got to do it in a way that you have never done it before, in a very calm way. And if you want to use wisdom to tell the husband, darling, I've been thinking about what's going on, and I realize that what I am doing, these 2 or 3 things are wrong. And the husband would say, wow, you understand where there is an acknowledgement based on self-reflection. When you say, I know it's my fault, I've done this. And the husband then, inshallah, be forthcoming. He said, I also now recognize what I need to do differently. So in the end, the important aspect is we must not give up on each other. Never give up on each other. The love must still be there, but you need to do certain things differently.
So it's important how much we want to go for the name of love, I would say. And talking about that, right, are there any, effective or practical ways on communicate other than using, as I usually like soft words? Any other ways?
Yeah, they are. In fact, one effective way, and this may be new to many people, where you ask the wife, for example, I want you to share what's going on in your home through the eyes of your husband. You see, there is role playing.
Imagine yourself in their shoes.
And vice versa. Right? In that way, if you have understood the situation, then you'll be saying it in a way that would really be true to what the other person is going through. And in that way, you'll begin to show a degree of empathy.
I see.
Yeah, that's one. But the important things, there are about 4 or 5 things that I would recommend they need to do. Number 1, you must maintain open communication.
Open communication.
Yeah. It's very important. Sometimes we tend to shut up, we don't say anything, we stonewall, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's important, listen actively, express what you're going through, express your emotions, and very, very important, and try to understand each other's perspective.
Trying to be, it means that try to have empathy.
Yeah.
In the end of the day.
Yeah.
I would like to mention about the stonewalling, right? I think not many people are aware of how dangerous it is because people thought that I'm just having self care. I just want to take care of my emotion first before affecting my other spouse. Others, I've seen most commonly used excuse of why people opt to stonewalling because they said that they want to take care of their emotion first. What do you think about that?
You know what? When you stonewall, it's not fair on the other person because what the other person is getting frustrated. I think it's important to have the doors of communication open, be respectful, be honest about it, and give the other person a chance. Do not interrupt them. I think that to me is very, very important, right? Because in the end, the critical aspect is both parties must feel they had an opportunity to be heard, right? The second thing that is very, very critical, you got to choose the right time and place for this. You got to choose the right time and place for this. Maybe you suggest, you know what, let's you and I first go out for a dinner.
Simple going
Go
for
out.
date night.
And that dinner will calm you down.
I see.
You understand?
Yes.
And when you are there in the restaurant, you'll make sure that you're not speaking too loudly, you're not too boisterous, and you're not at all offensive. So I think that's very, very important, right? The other thing is this, that when people are tired, when they're exhausted, they do not want to listen to problems.
Yeah.
They don't want to listen. So that's one. The other thing that I would recommend, this is for me very critical. You must focus on the issues,
Focus on the issue.
not on the individual.
I see.
Do not damn the person and say, you are like this and like this. And that is something that you must avoid. Right? Now, there are few things that I want to recommend. You spoke about this in one of our earlier shows. You got to practice active listening.
Active listening, yes.
If you have not listened before, right, she mustn't say, well, you know what, I think I'm wasting my time. You're fidgeting with your phone. You're not listening to me.
Yes.
So I'm wasting my time. I don't think you're interested in stabilizing this marriage. Do you want to be in this home? So I think it's important for you now more than any other time to go out of your way, to listen actively, the body language, and all of these things that are important,
Yes.
nodding, acknowledging, and all of that. So I think, if we can do that, that will make a very, very big difference.
I agree on that, especially for women. We really appreciate if you show that non-verbal cues, that you are actively listening to us. And you mentioned about choosing date and time. So this means that whenever problem comes into your marriage or into your relationship, that doesn't necessarily means that you have to solve it directly on that time. Right, so it is okay sometimes to take time, is it okay if you take your time first before you come back into your spouse and talk about the matter, or should we just directly try to solve that problem as soon as possible?
You know what? From situation to situation is different. Remember, when people's passions are heightened, you might say things that you're going to regret. Once the words come out, the damage is done. Sometimes it could be far worse than the situation itself. Then you are leaving no room for healing. And therefore, what is important, sometimes even take a break and say, you know what, let us leave it for 2 or 3 days.
I see.
In that way, each one of us will have an opportunity to reflect, an opportunity will have to think about it, and in that way we would be able to move ahead.
Yeah.
And what I also recommend sometimes is to write letters to each other.
Mashallah. It's cute.
Letters to each other, because the letters are often more deliberate, they're more informed, they're more thought-provoking, and it's more considered. right? And the two other aspects that I feel that are also very, very important, the whole issue about in the discussions about compromise. You know, it's about saying, you know what,
Compromise.
saying, for example, okay, I'm prepared to stop doing this. Let us say one of the issues is that the wife complains that the husband is spending too much of time away from home,
Yeah.
and he may have another issue about her. So he says, okay, you know what, this is what I'll do. I've decided, instead of me going twice a week to play golf, I'll only go once a week. Now, it's a big thing, right? Then she might say, okay, fine, I would do the following also. So there has to be some
It's like give and take.
yeah, give and take, you see. That's important. That is, to me, very, very fundamental if you want to create a situation. It can't be that you are taking all the time, but you are not making, you're not investing in the marriage. And this is a significant thing. The last point, right, and there are many other points I could talk about, that sometimes in the end, you need to go for professional help.
It is okay because I know that some couples are shy to do it.
Yeah. No, you go to someone that you both of you all believe in, both of you know, inshallah, through that mediation, it'll help you navigate those turbulent waters. So I think that's fundamental. And choose someone that both of you respect.
I see.
Right? The guy must have, or she must have, an established reputation, that he's a person that loves marriage, the person you're going to. Because if you're going to someone who is divorced and is unhappy with the institution of marriage, you say, listen, don't break your head, you'd rather call it off. Stuff like that.
I
I
see.
think that's important, you know.
And I agree with you with your previously point. You mentioned that, during moments of conflict, emotions can often spiral out of control, and in the end of the day, it can make the resolution more difficult than what initially was. And talking about that, it is something that people often relate it to women. When people think that women are emotional, they find it hard to control whenever they are in being emotional, and that's why they say that it is quite difficult to solve problems when women are not being okay, or being, of course, here being emotional. So, what is your advice to the men out there to understand about women being emotional?
Yeah, you see, I don't have an issue that women get emotional. But in your emotional state, you do not pick up the phone and complain to your parents. You start crying there. You say, Daddy, Mommy, take me away, fetch me now, and whatnot.
Yeah.
So that adds another dimension to it. There are some no's, some things that we've got to bear in mind. You must never do that, right? Secondly, do not phone each other's friends and complain about each other. Thirdly, you do not send your message to the WhatsApp. And fourthly, lots of people do this. What they do, they put it in the status, in social media. And the husband sees this. I mean, this is, or vice versa. You don't do that.
It's very mature.
Yeah, it's very, very immature. So I think one has to be very, very guarded. Because at that particular moment, you might believe there is no future in this marriage. But suddenly, someone gives you hope, takes you by the hand, and then you realize you can do it. But then after that, the wife learns this is what you've been saying about her. So you exacerbate the situation.
So they feel that they're being embarrassed on to the public.
Yeah. I recall some years ago, I had the husband and wife there, and the husband's temper was quite volatile.
I see.
And then I gave them, I thought, good advice. I didn't have too much of time with them, but I made it very clear that when you leave from here, your conversations are very critical, right? And you won't believe it what happened.
What happened?
Before they left that building, the wife was provoking him. He came back with her. He said, I've decided my marriage is over. You know what I'm saying to you?
That's shocking.
Because the tongue can be a very destructive thing.
Yes.
You got to control yourself. There are some things you do not say. I often tell them, you know what? You and your wife go out and have dinner somewhere. Hold each other's hands. Do not say anything.
Yeah.
And each one of you reflect on what you need to do differently. Do not think about what the other person, because you cannot control her. You cannot change her. You can only control yourself and change yourself.
Yes.
And people, if they take that particular advice, it makes a big difference, because you got to give people coping skills in the end, you know.
And I'd like to move a bit into, again, still talking about the handling conflicts, but this time, some conflicts happen repeatedly, not just one times. And what happens if it is not properly addressed or properly solved? Of course, it can repeat it over and over again. So these can create frustrations. So specifically in terms of repeated conflicts, what is your advice on how this couple can overcome it?
You see, one of the things that I ask when couples come to me, I ask them, have you seen other counselors? For how long has this been going on? But remember, by then, each, if not both, are fed up and tired.
Yeah.
But I say to them, give me a chance. You're coming here for the first time to me. Give me an opportunity. So when there are repeated conflicts, that is a reflection on that marriage. That means either one or both are ignoring the situation. You cannot sweep things under the carpet. And the earlier you resolve it, there'll be less resentment. And you know what? When you go to some homes where they are picture perfect, they speak with love, they're so romantic and everything else that goes with it. Yeah. And when you talk to them, they will tell you, you know what? We had our tough days. There were some very, very tough days. And there were days in which she and I began to ask, how did we get to
the point where...
You know what I'm saying to
Yes,
you?
yes.
So I think people need to understand that for a marriage to work out, right, it's important that you deal with each other in a loving way, and that you are pragmatic in your approach, and that way you'll find a huge, huge difference. So if there is repeated things, then there must be commitment from each, if not both people, that they're going to desist from doing certain things that is going to provoke the other person. Because provocation is also a very critical part in any conflict, you know.
Yeah. So you need to try to avoid that provocation. And talking about that, we need to involve the conversation of forgiveness, because previously you mentioned about the self-reflection. There's something that I take from your previous point about self-reflection. You have to admit, it's okay to admit that you are wrong. First, admit that you're wrong, and then discuss on how can you guys improve of it. And talking about admitting yourself, it is not easy, right? To turn down your ego and to admit that yes, you are wrong. And featuring into that about the forgiveness, not easy for everyone to ask for forgiveness, especially from their spouse. So, from your years of experience giving counsel to married couples, troubled married couples, can actually forgiveness happen without an apology? Do you really have to verbally admit that you are wrong?
I think it is important. You got to swallow your pride. It might bruise your ego, but that's a way to do it. In that way, when you say, forgive me, I'm sorry, I was wrong, what are you really doing? You're giving an opportunity for this marriage to sustain itself, to grow, and to flourish. Otherwise, if you're not prepared to do that, then it's not fair, you see. And it takes, as they say, two hands to clap,
Yes.
So I think it's important for that to take place. Forgiveness should be a recurring theme in every home,
Not just whenever you have
Yeah, correct, yes.
big issues, right? And as we are reaching the end of this conversation, can you give some final advice on how can people maintain a long-term healthy relationship?
I think one of the things that I did not mention is something that I would like to see happen. I would like to see both individuals learning, developing rather, the art of emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence.
Yes, once you develop that art, then you'll find that you are able to navigate things. There is no rudeness. You become self-aware. You become present. You will make sure you do not hurt the other person. There is a lot of empathy. You disagree, but you're not disagreeable. You are disciplined enough to know when to speak, when to be quiet. You realize there is no place for tit-for-tat situation.
Yes.
And also you also realize that if I'm going through a situation in my marriage, it does not mean I'm in an unhealthy marriage. You are in a healthy marriage, but there is something you need to deal with.
Yeah. It's very interesting about the emotional intelligence, right? And it is something, I don't know, for my own experience, it is something that you learn by observing other people. You learn by your own experience, the way how you communicate with people. It is something that worth to master, because it's not just going to improve your relationship in your marriage, but also can improve the general things in your life, right? It goes far more beyond that. And with that being said, I would like to thank Brother Idris for his insights on today's conversation, and we hope that in today's conversation it gives you the insight about how can you manage the conflict resolution, also problem solving practically in your marriage. And again, I would like to thank you, Brother Idris, for your insights onto this conversation. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
And to our dear listeners, if you'd like to leave some comments, or you would like to even share your stories, you can leave it on the comment section of this live under the Facebook and comment section of the Facebook and also YouTube, or you can just leave leave a message at our WhatsApp contact at 011-29004004. So be sure to tune in to us next week for more conversation with Brother Idris Kamisa. Stay tuned to IKIM FM, inspirasi utama anda.